Episode 298, IRONMAN Lake Placid with Zach Stinson. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We'll hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in it for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hey everybody, welcome back to the pursuit of the perfect race. Today I'm talking with Zach Stinson about his recent race at IRONMAN Lake Placid 2019, where he had a time of 12 hours, 39 minutes, and 8 seconds. So Zach is doing the hand cycle division, where he had to have a hand cycle and also a push rim bike because he's a double amputee. Welcome to the show, Zach. I look forward to talking to you about your race, man.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
Hey, so before we really get started, man, why'd you want to do this? Like, you don't have to do Ironman. Like, this is a big-ass challenge. Why? Why do this?
Yeah, it was just the challenge. It was basically the hardest thing I could think of at the time, and just to see if I could.
Yeah? So you signed up last December, right before Christmas. How did your training go? What was this looking like? Because I think at the time, you didn't have a push rim that you could use. Like, you didn't really know how to swim or bike this. Like,
at the time I signed up, I couldn't swim, and I had never been in the push rim. So I technically signed up without really knowing how to swim or run. So yeah, I worked with Semper Fi Fund and talked to them ahead of time about doing this race, and they said that they would help me with getting the push rim. So that was in the works whenever I had signed up, but I was still 3 months before getting my actual wheelchair. And the swim, that was a process in itself. The day I signed up for the race, I immediately went over to the pool and did swam a mile. But I couldn't freestyle stroke. It was all breaststroke, and it took me an hour and 20 minutes. So I did that and was like, I'm in trouble. So had to basically teach myself how to do it. So I started with like a flotation belt and started working on my stroke that way. And after a month of doing that, I switched to a pool buoy. After doing a month of that, I went to buoyancy shorts, and then that's what I still train with today.
Man. So overall, what was your training like? I know you work with Simon Bennett with Apex Coaching, and y'all had a good plan of how to train for this race. What did this look like?
Yeah, I mean, it was just spending time doing everything. I mean, luckily I took to the push rim a lot faster than what he thought I would. I don't know if I'd say I was advanced, but I was able. He didn't have to deal with a lot of hurdles that we thought we would run into. Getting into the actual bike, because I had to get a brand new bike for this race and learn how to use that. That took a little bit of adjusting to as well. But yeah, we came up with the training schedule of swimming and getting me set up with that, and the biking. I've been biking for the past 4 or 5 years, so I didn't mind the biking. The big hurdle with that was getting out on the road. I didn't really want to do that for a while. And same thing with the push rim, because I really just didn't want to get hit by a car.
Right, because you're a lot lower to the ground. But, I mean, when we say the biking and the push rim, this is all upper body movements instead of lower body and then running with your legs. Like, this is completely different than a lot of athletes that have been on the show previous to this. What is this like for you? Because it's all upper body.
It really wasn't bad. I mean, I've been pretty strong upper body my entire life, so didn't really have an issue. Yeah, I can't even explain it in the race, because after doing the 112 on the bike and then going to the push rim was a tremendous relief. It just felt good to be doing a different motion than the one I had been doing for the previous 7.5 hours. And I just felt like I had so much more energy whenever I finally got into the wheelchair.
All right. So with this race, the bike alone has 7,200 feet of gain, and then the run course has 1,448 feet of gain. How did you train for this with the elevation difference? Because you don't live in a hilly area like this, do you?
It's a little bit of a drive to hit a little bit more hills. I mean, I was just trying to climb every hill I could, honestly. I mean, there was a couple times where I'd just go, and if I saw a hill, I would go climb it. And then once I did that, I would look for the next one. And luckily I did find if I went 30 minutes, east of me, I was able to get up into the state forest where there's not as much traffic, and there's a couple of hills. The most I had climbed was 6,000 feet in 90 miles, going up and down. I was basically climbing like 3 different hills or mountains or however you want to call them.
Man. So let's talk a little bit more about your backstory here. I know in 2007 you joined the Marine Corps, and then your IED strike was 5 days after mine, which was November 9th, 2010. Mm-hmm. What happened, man?
We were doing BDA, which is a battle damage assessment on some ordnance we had just dropped. And so my squad, I was a squad leader at the time, was tasked with going and do the battle damage assessment. So we went over to this village, and there was a wall that ran north to south along this village, and probably about, 15 meters before we got to the wall, I decided to get out in front. And then, so I got up to the wall. Everything was fine. I got on the other side and started walking. It was probably about another 15 meters, and I stepped down with my left leg, and it was like a pogo stick, just boom, up in the air. And yeah, ears are ringing and a lot of confusion.
All right. But from here, you're married and your wife was pregnant, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So she was 4 months pregnant at that time.
Wow. And then you get medevac back to the States and all that fun stuff with not knowing where basically all your belongings are, then coming back to the States. What's all this look like?
Well, I mean, for me, it was pretty easy because I was unconscious most of it. But yeah, so for my wife, it was a lot more hectic. We had just bought a house down in North Carolina. So, her mom actually came down, help her close up the house because we didn't know they don't know the extent. They're just like, your husband's been severely injured, and, he'll be in Bethesda and such date. So they closed up the house, and luckily, because it ended up being 2 years spent at the hospital. So yeah, they came there, and then it was just slowly kind of coming back to consciousness, because when I got blown up, I was conscious the whole time. My guys got to me, worked on me real good. It was probably, I think it was like 45 minutes until the helicopter came to pick me up. Still conscious, all the way to the OR. And then they put me in induced coma, and I woke up November 15th, back in Bethesda. So it was a 6-day transition period.
Wow. When did you wake up and realize that your legs were gone?
That was kind of like in and out with the meds. It was kind of like everything was a dream. So honestly, my wife and the family were telling me like multiple times a day that I didn't have legs anymore. And it's kind of funny. The one time that they weren't very careful, and they were just kind of like, you don't have any legs, is the one time I remember. So the sympathy definitely wasn't there at that time. But yeah, it was just like, okay, well, this is what I got now.
Man, like I'm glad that I was mounted with route clearance versus out on foot. So thankful for that. But this had to be stressful for your wife, because your wife could have easily just said, "Hey, I'm out. I'm not into this." But y'all are still together.
Yeah. Something's wrong with her or something, I guess.
Dang. And you also have a little girl as well, I think?
Yeah, we have, she was pregnant with our oldest, when I got injured, and then, we ended up having, another daughter, back in 2015.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So since then, how's the transition to life been? I know you also have a house as well.
Yeah, we got a house built back in my hometown. We did that through Homes for Our Troops back in 2013 is when we moved in, and that's been great. I mean, the community I live in is fantastic. It's been nothing but a blessing to come back home. And life's happening. Keeping busy with physical activity as well as hunting. And I just finished up gunsmithing courses online, and now looking to possibly do like some public speaking courses as well.
Wow. So to transition a little bit back to the training going into this race, you trained quite a bit going into this race. I'm sure you built up to more than 15 hours of training. What was the most out of hours you spent training in 1 week?
I don't even know, honestly. I mean, there were. I bet I probably hit closer to 20, honestly. With some of my longer rides on Saturday. I mean, like I said, my longest ride was 6 hours. And then it was nothing to do, another hour and a half in the pool on Monday and Wednesday, and then bike 3 hours on Tuesday, and then push rim. You know what I'm saying? Like, it all added up real quick. And luckily my wife was just very understanding and let me run off.
Did you go to the gyms as well, like strength training?
Not as much. It's kind of funny because whenever I got the coach, I said, I've always been big on strength training. And when I got the coach, I said I'd like to stay in the gym as much as possible. But then it got to the point where I was doing so much cardio, I was just absolutely worn out. So that kind of took more of a back seat. I was probably doing it maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times on some days. Definitely the one thing that did kind of stay consistent was going into the sauna. Just wanted to try to get my heat tolerances up, just because Placid is a summer race. Now, granted, it's usually cooler, but you just never know with the weather.
Right. So 2 months out from the race, that's about 3 months out is whenever you actually got your bike in April. How did you actually get used to cycling with this bike?
It was a little bit of a transition. Actually, the first time I took it out, I got really bad shoulder pain, because I was looking to the wrong side of the bike, or I guess the wrong side for me. So I was looking to the right, of the bike, and I had shoulder pain. So the next time I rode it, I just kind of looked off to the left angle and kind of cleared up the shoulder pain. So luckily that was good. And then everything else was just trying to figure out what worked. With that type of recumbent bike and not having legs, I want to slide down. So I had to make some type of stopper, a barrier, so I didn't slide down as far. So with that, I basically just took a foam roller, cut the top off and cut a wedge in it, and then duct taped it to the frame. And that kind of helped stabilize me a little bit.
Okay. So are you using typical helmets, typical cycling shorts? What's all this look like?
Not cycling shorts, because I'm not sitting. I don't have all my weight compressed on my butt on a tiny seat. I mean, I'm laying down, so not so much of a need for padding, at least for me. Helmet, I was using Gyro or Air Attack. I initially had used the Shield, but the Shield I didn't really care for, so I actually just took that off and just started wearing sunglasses. And then shorts were just Under Armour compression shorts.
Okay. So the push rim, how does this work? Because I've never had anybody on the show that's used a push rim before, and I don't really know anything about using a push rim. So what's this look like? And I know they can't be cheap. I mean, some of the wheelchairs that I was talking with some athletes at the Adaptive Training Foundation, they're like $4,000 and $5,000 just for a standard wheelchair that they're going to use for a few years.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean, a push rim can't be cheap.
Yeah, it's about the same. I think it's. I can't lie. I don't know exactly how much it cost because I didn't see the receipt. Semper Fi Fund, when I just contacted them and said about my interest in doing an Ironman, and I'm a member of Team Semper Fi, they had said that about getting me an adaptive wheelchair to do the wheelchair racing. So I was really interested in that. So I took them up on that, and then they got the wheelchair. I just had to go down to Florida and get fitted for it. But all it is it. So I have two 700cc discs, and they connect to the frame, and then connected to the discs is just this grippy rim, basically, and rubber. And I build my own gloves, and then I had a friend of mine built some for me. And it's basically you hold a stem, and there's a flat surface, and then a piece of rubber glued onto that. So it's rubber on rubber contact, and that's how you kind of push the wheelchair.
Wow. And did you have any issues with this? Because you're missing your right thumb and some other fingers as well.
Yeah. So whenever I first got it and was looking for gloves, it was I had to make my own. And then whenever Peter, he's the one that made me my other set, I actually had to send him a mold of my hand because not having the fingers, it made it a lot more difficult. As far as holding them and everything, not really. The hardest thing was getting used to just the wheelchair itself. It's very tippy, and it doesn't turn exactly like my bike. So literally the first time I ever even took it out, I lived in a cul-de-sac, and I just was going to just take it around in a circle and bring it back to the garage. And I went out of my garage, started doing this turn. Well, it turned a lot wider than I realized. I ended up going through the yard, and I didn't know how that was going to end up. So I just kind of like hunkered down and called my wife, and I was like, I can't even get out of here right now. So she was like, okay, I'm on my way. Well, in that time, I must have sat up a little bit, and I flipped the whole wheelchair back. So, I mean, I'm laying on my back in the middle of the yard with the wheelchair pointing straight up.
It doesn't seem like you have much modesty when it comes to this. Like you're just like, well, I messed up again. Yeah,
it's the truth. I mean, I learned from it, and it's freaking. That's all you can do, right?
Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about the fun stuff going into this race, man. How was the lodging and the logistics of getting up to Lake Placid? Did y'all just drive up there?
Yeah. Well, and that's why I picked Placid. There was no rhyme or reason to know what I know now. I don't even know if I'd necessarily have picked that race for my first one. It was close to my birthday, and this is what I wanted to do for my 30th birthday present to myself. And it was close. Yeah. So that was the main reason. It was just date and where it was locationally. And then it was funny. I talked to Cedric King and told him that I'd signed up for Placid, and they kind of looked at me like, "Ooh, well, that's kind of stretching it. Like, good luck with that kind of thing." Like I won't say anybody was completely negative, but they definitely looked at me like, oh, "You picked that one for your first race. That's interesting." And I didn't know. It took me. I signed up for it in December. I think I didn't actually look at the elevation map until March.
And then you realize why people were looking at you like you had two heads?
Well, yeah. And I talked to people that had attempted the race, and they were saying about how hilly it was and this and that. And I was like, well, maybe it's time. Maybe I should start being a little bit worried. Man.
So this worry, did it ever really like overtake you going, oh my gosh, what did I really sign up for? Am I really going to be ready for this shit? Like, did you ever have that?
There was one time. Because I'm still dealing with issues with my push rim, because even though I got fitted, it technically does not fit me 100% correctly. So even for Placid, I had to improvise. So it's built more for a paraplegic, where their legs kind of slide in under it. Well, I sit on that platform. I don't actually sit on a seat like I should. So I kind of just figured out what worked and kind of went with it. But I remember, I think it was probably 3 weeks after I got the wheelchair, and I was having issues with it. And I was like, am I even going to be ready just because I got to not only learn how to use this thing, I also got to figure out how I'm going to go 26.2 miles and deal with hills on it. So that was kind of worrying, but that kind of subsided real quick. And then honestly, the only other time I really had issues was the 2 days leading up to the race. We had driven the course and I knew what I was dealing with, but it was just like one of those things like, how am I going to be? I don't have anything to go off of.
All right. Whenever you think about getting up to Placid, you have a team. I mean, that's about the easiest way to say it, because you need somebody to help you get to the transition from the swim. You also have to have 2 bikes there, all your gear, and then you also have your wife and 2 kids there. What was the...
No kid.
Oh,
we went without kids.
Oh, you went without kids?
Yeah, thank goodness.
Okay.
That'd been probably a lot more miserable for him. But yeah, a buddy of mine, Eric, he flew up from Maryland to help me with the transitions, and my wife was the planner as well as handling with transitions.
Wow. What did you think about Lake Placid whenever you got to the city itself? I mean, there's the ski jumps there. I mean, it's very welcoming. What was all this like for you whenever you actually got to Placid?
It was just pretty nuts. I mean, I've only done marathons up until that point, and I mean, there's a lot of energy at those, but triathlon and IRONMAN was something completely different. I mean, there was definitely a completely different vibe. And it was beautiful. I mean, me and my wife still say it's probably one of the most beautiful places we've ever even been to. Yeah, it was fantastic. And in all honesty, the hills weren't I wasn't really worried about too much of the hills, whenever we actually drove the bike course. Honestly, the biggest part that worried me, especially now after having done the course, is still the descent into Keene.
Really?
Oh yeah. I was tapping my brakes and still flirting with 50.
God.
But it was legitimately like, if I lose my brakes, I'm either going to wreck or I'm just going to be going stupid speeds.
Man. Because like I think the most I've ever been on a bike is 52, 53, somewhere in that range. But I'm on 2 wheels and I have brakes. Like I'm used to that. But I'm not on 3 wheels a lot lower to the ground like you. Like that's gotta be a little bit more scary.
Well, it's sketchy, and I'm not much of a daredevil anyway. Maybe if I was, I wouldn't mind it near as much. But I know whenever training around my hometown, whenever I went up with another guy, and he was on an upright bike. Granted, it wasn't like a carbon bike or anything super fast, but he was hit on one of the downhills. He was hitting 41, and I was hitting 52. He didn't hit his brakes, and I hit mine twice before I caught 52.
So your bike is probably a lot faster then.
Yeah, it's a lot more aero. I mean, I'm lower to the ground. There's not really a whole lot of wind hitting me. So yeah, it speeds up pretty quick. I think the fastest I got on the course on Placid, I think, was 48.
Man. So you get up to Placid. Where did y'all stay at?
The Crown Plaza, I think is what it was called. It was right by the conference center at the top of the hill.
That's nice.
Which was really nice. Yeah, it was. I mean, the lodging up there and everything was fantastic.
Man, do you remember how expensive the lodging up there is?
I really don't. Because as soon as I signed up for the race, I think it was like 2 weeks later, I was looking for hotels and I had no idea. So I just found a place on Priceline because so much of it was already sold out for the cheaper stuff. So I do remember I paid a little bit more, but I really don't remember how much.
Okay. So you get checked into the hotel. When did y'all actually start going around and looking at the venue and checking in as an athlete and getting your packet and all that fun stuff?
So we got up there Thursday night. I think it was Thursday night. Yeah. And then we did the check-in and everything on Friday, drove the bike course and kind of got a little bit more familiar with everything. And then Saturday, Friday night, and we went and picked up my buddy at the airport. And then Saturday we went through like the swim transition with him, how that was going to work. And kind of just finalizing all the plans for how nutrition and everything was going to work at the transition areas.
You make this trip to the airport seem like it's just right down the road when it's how far away is this airport?
It was only an hour. It was up in, I think it was called Plattsburgh.
Yep. That's a little bitty airport.
Well, yeah, the joke was we made sure that he got there in time to get through TSA because it was obviously a big wait. My wife was like, I could get used to this airport. She liked it. But yeah, there ain't a whole lot going on up there.
Man. So as far as check-in and knowing that you're in the division by yourself, did you know that you weren't going to get a South Dakota at this point, or was it afterwards that you found out? What was this like?
Well, I just figured like I said, I am very ignorant to Ironman stuff going in, and even still now, I'm still learning. But yeah, I just figured since Placid is such a big qualifier for able-bodied athletes, I figured it didn't. I mean, it's 10 times worse for hand cycle athletes. That's why not many people do it. And so, yeah, I just figured it was an automatic slot. But it basically, from what I understand, it just enters me in a lottery. And I decided to skip that this year, and just instead of hoping for a slot, I signed up for the Chicago Marathon instead.
Okay. So you're doing Chicago this year after, or is that next for you? Is the Chicago Marathon? Yeah,
that'll be in October. It's the same weekend as Kona, so it was either I picked one or the other.
Gotcha. So you get checked in, you walk through transition with your team and all that. What's your nutrition like the day before the race? Are you trying to make sure you get a certain breakfast, lunch, and dinner in, or are you kind of just doing whatever you feel like doing? What's this look like?
I mean, not trying to eat junk, but just trying to eat a lot. I eat a lot anyway, so I was okay with that. The big thing that I talked to about my coach, was staying cool. Was just not overexerting myself on Saturday to be ready for the race on Sunday. So we got through everything, I think, by like 1 o'clock, and then I just kind of hung out in the hotel room until supper, and then made sure everything was still good, and we were ready to roll on Sunday.
Okay. Whenever you went and dropped everything off for your race the next day, what were you putting in your bike to run and your swim to bike bags?
Well, I mean, I'm still working on getting the wetsuit. So I was only actually for the swim, I was using buoyancy shorts and a compression top. And then since I actually had people with me, the bags weren't as high of a priority as they would be for like a standard athlete. I still had certain stuff in them, but, the plan was, since I had my own little like changing area, I was going to do most of my changing at that point. Just kind of getting the bare necessities in the transition tents, and then getting to my bike and doing the full change there, making sure I had like my heart rate monitor and everything else set. But yeah, it was just, I had the clothes I wore was long sleeve compression, Under Armour top, and then my Team Seprify racing jersey over top of that. And then Under Armour compression shorts. And then I was just running a Garmin 520 with Garmin heart rate monitor.
Okay. So being that you're using some Garmin stuff here, were you aiming for a certain heart rate throughout the bike and the run? What's this look like?
Yeah. We had, so the plan was to do, 130 to 140, for the bike, and then, 85 to 95, cadence, and then higher cadence on the climbs, but just trying to keep it around that area. Which, I mean, and then on the push rim, heart rate was 135 to 145. And we were able to, I mean, I was able to stay within that for the most part. For some reason on the bike, it took a while for my heart to kind of calm down. No rhyme or reason. It was just hovering at 145 for the longest time.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that point. Day before the race, you and your coach talk about how he wants you to execute the swim, the bike, and the run in detail. What does this look like?
Well, I mean, just trying to figure it out. So the swim, we had decided that my buddy was just going to carry me because Placid is just 2 loops. So whenever I finished the first loop, he would fireman carry me over to the start of the second. I would swim that, and then firemen carry me to my wheelchair, and then my wife would push me back to the transition area while he got kind of situated and less soaking wet. And so that we executed that really well. And then it was just trying to work with the race coordinators and figure out exactly where I could be with my wheelchair whenever I came in from the bike and transition into the wheelchair.
Okay. So the day before the race here, what does this look like as far as you going to bed and waking up? I know you're staying pretty close to the venue and all that, so you don't really have to worry about a commute the morning of. So what time do you go to sleep and wake up?
Oh, it was fantastic. I fell asleep at like 9:30. Still woke up at, I wanted to be there as soon as the place opened, basically. So I could be as ready as possible, just work on finalizing last minute things if anything came up and just kind of getting comfortable. So we got there, I want to say it was right around 4:30, 4:45, somewhere around there. But yeah, we woke up. I went to bed at like 9:30. Woke up at like 3:45.
Okay. Now, what are you getting for breakfast? And do you have a morning ritual you like to do before you head down to the venue?
I mean, there wasn't really anything. It was the breakfast was just like toast with peanut butter and honey, and then I also had like some stuff to snack on like an hour before the swim start, and yeah, I was really kind of it. There wasn't any other morning ritual or anything like that.
Okay. Do you do coffee?
Oh yeah. Well, I should say that was the morning ritual. I think I had like 3 cups of coffee instead of my usual 2.
Okay. So you get down to the transition area. What's this emotions like down here, and what's the atmosphere like for you to be in transition at this point? Because today's the day that you're going to be doing this. You're going to be going off here in a few hours to start your journey of becoming an Ironman. What's the energy like in transition for you?
There was a lot of energy. It was a lot of nerves too. My first race and everything. Just trying to get settled down and keep my heart rate down, trying to stay calm. But it was exciting. And I knew the big helper for me was my wife's a big planner as well. So planning out everything and how every transition was going to go and basically how my race was going to go was a big help in settling a lot of the nerves that I had. So just knowing that I had a plan established and that she was going to be able to execute it really well really helped.
Okay. So you leave transition, head down to the swim start. This is about a half mile away. I'm just trying to think logistically here. So you have your hand cycle bike, and you also have your push rim in transition. But you also have to have another third wheelchair, which is probably your day-to-day wheelchair, to go down to the swim start.
Yep.
So you have 3 wheelchairs in total here. So you get down to transition. This is a beach start, and maneuvering through these thousands of people. I mean, there's 2,000 people that did this race, or that at least finished. Probably 2,500 that started. There's a lot of people down there. How do you maneuver this to get up to where you want to start? Because you want to start at where did you want to seed yourself at?
Well, it's up to, if I remember correctly, it's the race director's call on where we start in the hand cycle and physically challenged division. So technically, if I remember correctly reading the rules, I can start ahead of the pros, but they gave us a big break, and I'm really happy with it. They gave us 30 seconds after the professionals, which was fantastic. So the pros went, and then me and another Ulf, the other physically challenged athlete, were able to start immediately after.
That's pretty nice. So how big of a deal was it to actually get all the way to the front of all these athletes in a wheelchair?
Oh, it was fantastic. Like that was my biggest worry going into was whenever there's all these people around me, like how's it going to go? Especially whenever I don't even have legs. So I've heard so many horror stories in the short amount of time training for this about guys getting kicked in the face and everything. So initially, whenever it was, my plan was just to kind of get to the outside and just stay away from everybody.
Okay. So they do the national anthem, the pros go off. You're about to start your journey of your race. What's your mindset like? What's this like for you to be in your body, and what do you feel, and what do you experience here?
It was just kind of like, this is actually happening. It's still hard. Like, I can still go back to that moment right before getting in the water and just like, well, we're actually going to do this. This is going to be pretty crazy. Yeah, it was just nuts. And then again, just trying to stay on the calmer side too, because I didn't want to just explode with emotions and everything, honestly.
Yeah. So what do you see here? I mean, obviously Mirror Lake, the pros are in the water. And I know as a veteran myself, like the national anthem has a different meaning for me now that I've been deployed twice. And did you feel the same way?
Actually, I think they played the national anthem after I was in the water, because I really don't remember that. So I think they played it after the pros got in and before main body, if I remember correctly. Because if it did happen, then I was just in a different mindset anyway. But I'm with you. And the national anthem has a different meaning, especially after I know you know about it. That picture went viral. It's my claim to fame, I guess.
I actually do. I put that on Instagram, and I think it was like I had 3 people message me what your handle was of, hey, reach out to him. Here's his handle on Instagram. Like, okay, cool. So that's pretty cool. So you get off in the swim. How does the first few 100 yards of the swim go for you?
I hated the swim. If I never do another full Ironman, is all because of the swim. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I've swam open water before, but I just could not keep my head down to save my life. And I never stopped moving, never panicked or anything, but I just couldn't keep my head down. So there was a little bit of frustration there, but I didn't let it really get to me and just kind of kept moving.
So this is a 2-loop course here. You don't really have to sight too much here because you have the cable at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Could you see the cable? Could you follow it pretty well? What was this like?
Yeah. I kept on the cable as much as I could until the main body of swimmers caught up to me. And then another benefit was being able to move to the interior of all the buoys and just making sure that at the corners I had to go around the outsides. So I'm still doing the same distance, but there's not that fear of drowning kind of thing.
Right. Did you get kicked or hit or dunked or anything like that?
No, I was able to avoid all that. Thank goodness.
Man, that's good. Like, man. So it's a wetsuit legal race here, and you're able to use your buoyancy shorts and compression top here. Did you have an idea of if you wanted to use tinted goggles or clear goggles here? Why did you pick the goggles you picked?
I used tinted. I should have used clear, but I didn't want to change what I had been working with and training with for so long. That is actually kind of funny. I lost like the goggles I had been training with the majority of my training time. I lost them a month before the race. So I ended up getting a pair of Roka. I think I got the F2s or something like that. But I started working with those and I really liked them, and I didn't want to pay for another pair. But yeah, I definitely will invest in some clear goggles for next time.
Why clear? I mean, I've always used...
I just couldn't see. I mean, not like I needed to see a whole lot underneath me, but even sometimes the cable was a little bit even harder to discern. It was just so much darker than what it needed to be.
Okay. So Eric was able to actually pick you up and put you back in the water, basically, because it's a 2-loop swim. How did that go for you?
It went great. We had practiced it the day before and didn't have any issues. and we didn't practice it a whole lot. But when it came time for the actual swim during the race, it went off exactly like we planned. So it went really smooth. Got me back in the water and then back for lap 2.
Did you have an idea of what your time was on the first lap?
No. I know my wife and Eric said I was faster on the second lap, but I have no idea because I had actually even talked with people at the race about it too, because everybody wears the time chip on their ankles. And obviously I don't have ankles. So I said it would be at my arm, but with Eric picking me up, the timing sensor is like, it would be a lot lower than what my arm would be. So they had said that they might miss us on the first one, but he was like, if it misses you the second time, I'll just enter it manually. I'll just keep an eye out for you. So I'm guessing that's what they had to do.
Okay. I mean, that's pretty nice that the timing folks would kind of adjust that for you.
Yeah.
So the second lap, pretty much the same as the first. No hitting, dunking, kicking, all that fun stuff. You stay on the center, do your swim. You come out with an hour 36:20. Did you have an idea when you got done with the second lap what your time was?
Not at all. But considering I wasn't able to keep my head down, I was actually really surprised I did so well with that. I really figured I'd probably be closer to an hour 50.
Really?
It was horrible, and it was nobody's fault but my own. I have no idea why. I still don't even know why I wasn't able to keep my head down.
Okay. Was it just that you might have had like anxiety or adrenaline or something?
It might have been nerves, but I'd like to think that I had addressed that enough. I mean, that was constantly in my mind just to stay calm because I didn't need my heart blowing up this early in the race. And so, I mean, I didn't feel a whole lot of that. I have no excuse because I couldn't even do it whenever there was nobody else in the water except for me, really. So,
okay. So, T1, you're in T1 for 9 minutes and some change, 9:07 here. How does this go from getting out of the water to get on your bike?
So Eric carried me to my wheelchair, and then my wife basically shoved nutrition on my lap and was pushing me down to T1 while I was eating and drinking and kind of getting everything calmed down. We get onto the bike and I change, and then I get on the bike and just kind of make sure that everything's comfortable because I know I'm going to be on the bike for the next 3.5 hours. And that's what I told my wife and Eric even before we did the race. It was like slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I don't want to rush through a transition and save 2 minutes. And then for the next 3 hours, I'm uncomfortable because there's something where it shouldn't be or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And especially going from the swim, I said about that because of it being a beach start. I was like, I'm going to get sand everywhere. So I just wanted to try to minimize sand as much as possible.
Yeah, you don't want sand in your crotch.
It happened, but luckily it didn't annoy me too much.
Yeah. So you get out on the bike right here. The first less than half a mile is downhill. You have a downhill and a left turn there.
Yeah.
They even have hay bales set up there. What was this like for you? Because you're on a hand cycle bike and you have to brake for this and turn and not wreck. Like, that's the biggest thing.
That's always the goal. Wasn't horrible. Especially, coming out of town, I really didn't mind that at all. I mean, coming from transition 1, it was a little bit more crowded, but, and I was worried about that, but it really wasn't as bad as what I had thought. And actually I thought the climb out of town, climbing the hill so that you can go down to Keene, I thought that was the second worst hill on the course. I hadn't really planned for that to be as miserable as it was.
Okay. You're on the bike for 7 hours and 36 minutes overall.
Mm-hmm.
You also swam for an hour and 36 minutes, and you had a 9-minute break in there before you start your 7.5 hours on the bike. You're going to be on the bike for more than 6 hours. That's a given.
Yeah.
So you have to be mentally tough enough to stay in your own mind for 7+ hours. How did you get to this point where you can go, okay, yeah, 7 hours in my own mind, doing this one thing over and over is okay. And I'm okay with doing this over and over.
Well, one was the training, doing so many rides around here, and I don't wear headphones or anything just because I am always so worried about freaking cars hitting me. I always want to be aware of what's going on around me. So that was nothing new. But in all honesty, it really wasn't bad. And this is one thing I really enjoyed with Ironman in general, is that everybody talks. Like, I mean, everybody there's really, I wasn't up with them, but I'm assuming that the pros and the faster age group athletes are really about the only ones racing. I feel like everybody else is just trying to finish and not die in the process. And I really enjoyed that because that's how I am with marathons. I always try to talk with people, and everybody's always, I feel like, a little bit more interested in racing. But whenever you're talking with people and motivating them and doing whatever, it's always good. I mean, we're all going through it together, so why not just embrace the suck kind of thing?
Right. Man, so you get out on the bike ride, you're leaving town, the adrenaline of getting done with the swim fades probably about mile 20, 25, 30 at the most. You're hitting some of the first few aid stations. You're really getting into your groove probably about an hour and a half into the bike ride. What's this like for you whenever you're like, okay, I still have over 90 miles to go? Like, this is going to be a while because the adrenaline only goes so far, but then you settle into reality going, man, this is going to take a minute.
Well, I'd say I got in my groove as soon as I got down the hill from Keene. That was just my thing. Once I got done with that, I had breathed a sigh of relief and was like, okay, I'm not going to die on this lap. And it was just kind of smooth from there. I mean, the adrenaline was gone, and then that's whenever having a plan and sticking to the nutrition and everything else that we had already discussed, just kind of kicked in. Like, okay, well, from now on, it's every 30 minutes, keeping up with the electrolytes, keeping up with the gels, and just doing what we had planned. And then also, I was also conscious to pay attention to my body. And, if I felt something that was uncomfortable, to try to fix it as soon as possible instead of just kind of dealing with it.
Okay. So walk me through what your nutrition plan is here, because I know you're wanting to use gels and you also have some electrolytes from First Nutrition, but on your hand cycle bike, do you have room for bottles? What's this like?
So yeah, I was drinking First Endurance EFS Pro lemon water electrolyte mix, and that was working really well for me. And then I also had a Camelback filled with 3 liters of water.
Okay, so you weren't worried about the aid stations having what you needed because you had enough water and you had enough electrolytes and calories?
Yeah, and then I brought my own gels as well, and was using Honey Stinger. And then I also, if I needed extras or anything, I always stopped at aid stations.
Okay. Now, were you worried about the cutoff times on the bike ride?
They were in the back of my mind. And it was something I'd given a lot of thought to, but, yeah, according with everything, even though I had not biked the actual course, I was figuring on 3.5 hours, to do the 56 miles. And I was pretty much there, for the first lap. And then the second one obviously was a little bit slower, but I think I was only like 15 or 20 minutes longer than my first lap.
Okay. So from your point of view, whenever you got to miles 60, 70, and 80, you've been on the bike for more than 4.5, 5 hours now, but you still have over 2 hours left. What's this like? Because usually along in this point of the bike ride, people have rough spots of negative thoughts, maybe. Man, do I really want to do this? What was this like for you?
Honestly, not so much negative spots. I had already had the thought process even way before even starting the race, probably about 2 months out, that I just need to tackle it a mile at a time. You don't get to 140 unless you do mile 1. You know what I mean? And So that was my process, was just taking it a mile at a time. And I really didn't have the negative thoughts or anything like that. I just kind of, after driving the course, I knew what to look for the next spot. So like after doing the first loop, coming around for the second one, it was, okay, well, now I got to climb out of town. And then once I got to that point, it was like, okay, now I got to do this keen descent. And then after that, I knew it was going to be flat basically until I got to J. And then whenever I got to J, then it was going to be a sharp left and climbing for a while. And I attacked each section like that. And it worked really well.
Okay. So as far as the bike ride goes, if someone else is going to be in this hand cycle division, what's some advice that you would give them for this course?
I mean, you got to be able to climb hills and just keep your nutrition up. I told my coach, I was like, I know I had the mentality to be able to conquer this course, but especially that was where it came invaluable with all that he helped me with, was especially the nutrition, because I had no knowledge of nutrition before doing these races. And being able to figure out the importance of electrolytes and the gels to keep fueling your body. I mean, I would have freaking collapsed after 40 miles.
Okay. So you get to miles 90. This is kind of a good moment to pass here, because this is as far as you went in training. What was it like passing the 90-mile mark?
That was pretty cool, honestly. I mean, that up until that point, that's where I was like, okay, well, I can do this. This isn't an issue. And then after that, it was kind of like getting into the unknown. But I mean, I still felt good. And there were still people that would pass me, or I would pass them or whatever. And we were still trying to motivate each other and keep going. So, I mean, that motivation never left.
Okay. So whenever you think of the people that you saw on the bike course, did y'all talk a lot whenever you get past or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just kind of a friendly conversation that you have with somebody that you're biking 112 miles with. This sucks, expletive kind of thing. But no, it was good. It just having somebody to talk to every once in a while and just keep each other going and motivated. It was always good.
Right. So as far as the hills on the bike course go, you have 7,200 feet of gain. Just a little touch over that. What was this like for you being a hand cycle? Because you don't have legs, you can't really go back and forth. You're on a tricycle basically with a hand cycle. What was this like? Because this is hard to go up hills with this.
This is true. So it was kind of funny because up until, I don't even know, probably like mile 30 on the first lap and on the second lap as well, I would kind of just see the same people, because on the downhills I'm faster, but on the uphills I can't go as fast as what somebody can with their legs. So we might have like a slight incline and somebody would pass me. Well, on the downhill I would catch up to them and I'd pass them. So it was kind of going back and forth for a while. But yeah, it was, I can climb hills. It sucks and I'm not the fastest at it, but it doesn't really faze me either. I'd rather climb hills than go down them half the time. I can tell you that. Really? Well, it's like the keen descent. Like I said, I'd rather climb 1,000 feet than go down like a descent like that.
Is it just that scary for you?
Sometimes, like I said, I'm kind of a wuss when it comes to it. Anything above like 45 miles per hour, things start to get sketchy for me.
Man. So if you kind of look back on this bike course, what was the most memorable part about this bike course for you?
Honestly, after the first lap, getting back into the special needs bags and another lap. That was like the saddest part of the entire race for me.
What do you mean?
I mean, and I did, but it was a daunting task to finish 56 miles on the bike and then honestly be like, okay, I got to go do that all over again. That's just what sticks out to my mind. It felt great to be done with it and everything, and I knew I could do it. But yeah, going out for another 56 was pretty tough mentally.
So what did you put in your special needs bags?
So for the bike, I had pickle juice, another electrolyte drink that I could just switch out, Stinger chews with caffeine, and another Camelback bladder.
Okay, so basically just restock everything. No solid food here, but about this time you said that you had some left tricep pain here.
Yeah, I had felt it on the swim, and it really didn't start kicking in until like mile 30 on the bike. And I don't know what it was, but it was probably around like mile 60. I was just like, I'll try a banana, and started eating a banana, and it kind of went away. So after that, I made it the point to try to get a banana at every aid station, if not two.
Okay. So on the bike ride, you hit miles 100, then 105. You still have about 15, 20 minutes left. What's this like knowing that you're actually going to complete the bike ride here, and you'll have the swim and the bike ride completed?
Oh, it felt glorious. It truly was. I mean, the energy throughout the course with the crowds and everything was fantastic as well, and that really helped push me for those last couple miles. But I mean, it was always good, just like going to Papa Bear for the last time was fantastic for me, just because I know I didn't have to do it again, or going down doing the descent into Keene on the second loop. That was my biggest worry. And then once that was done, I was like, okay, it's all smooth sailing from here. So, yeah, knowing that I was actually finishing was great.
Yeah. So you get to transition to, you'll end up spending just a little over 11 minutes here, 11 minutes and 1 second. What was it like getting off of your hand cycle and then into transition and then getting on your push rim?
There was a little bit more chaos with this one. And that was a lot of it was my fault because I had to use the restroom, and I didn't I kind of realized it after I'd already gone in one direction. So I actually had to turn around and go the whole way back because there was only one handicapped, accessible porta-john around there. So that's what ended up costing me a little bit extra time. I probably could have done it in the transition probably in around 9 minutes as well. But besides that, I mean, it was great. Obviously the bike helmet or anything didn't come off. So, we just kept that on, got onto the wheelchair and started going.
So, there's only one porta-john that you could use, and you had to go back for that.
Yes.
Where was that at? Was it like, did you already get on the run course and then you had to go back to transition to use it? What's this like?
Well, it was actually right next to where I had staged all my stuff, like my hand cycle and my push rim. But since I had to go the same distance as everybody else, as far as going through the transition tents and everything, my push rim was actually staged on the other side. And, so we started heading towards my push rim, and I was like, I got to go use the restroom. So we had to turn around and go back to the porta-john.
Okay. So you get done with T2. You basically keep all the same clothes on. You just swap bikes, get your mitts on, and head out after you use the restroom. What was this like getting out onto the run course for the first time? Like, this is your first time to do an Ironman run, and now you're actually doing this. Like, what's this like?
Huge energy boost. I felt 100% fresh. I mean, there was a huge crowd already in town at that point. I mean, it just felt good to be in a different position than just laying down, honestly. And yeah, it just felt great. I felt extremely strong, and ready to go.
Okay. The first few miles here, you're pretty much going downhill, but not anything like the Keene descent or anything like that. What was this like for you to experience these downhills in a different position?
Oh, it was great. I actually, going out of town, I actually had to ride my brakes because there were so many people and I go so fast in that wheelchair. I don't know what my fastest speed was in that wheelchair, but I probably was upwards of 25 in some of the hills. But yeah, they actually, for the first portion, they actually had a vehicle going in front of me to try to clear the way a little bit until everybody kind of spread out.
That's kind of nice.
Oh yeah, it made it a lot easier.
Man. So I know you've done some marathons on your push room before, but nothing like this right here, because usually marathons are a lot more busy. I guess that'd be the best way to say it, because most marathons have more than 2,000 athletes doing them.
Well, actually, I never had done a marathon in my push room. I've done all my marathons on a bike, not on the wheelchair.
Okay, I didn't know that. So what do you mean? What's the difference there?
So, I mean, obviously a bike is crank powered, and then for the push rim, it's all arm powered. I mean, you'd have to see it, and most people actually get my wheelchair confused for a bike anyway. But yeah, so I'm kind of more leaning forward, kind of bent in half, and just pushing with my arms to get momentum going in the wheelchair.
Okay, gotcha.
I'll send you some pictures.
Okay, for sure. So you get out on the run course here in your push rim. What is the first lap like? The first half marathon? What's this like for you physically, mentally, emotionally to actually get through this?
It just felt good. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot. I knew I wanted my heart rate to be 135 to 145, so I tried not overexerting and everything. And honestly, I just tried enjoying it a little bit more, because this was, at this point, the day had kind of cooled down a little bit, and it was kind of just fun for me being in the wheelchair. And like I said, I just really enjoyed it for that first loop. The second loop is where it kind of hit that, like, okay, I'm going to finish and this is going to happen. It started getting a little bit harder to believe. But yeah, for the first one, I just kind of just did the plan, kept my nutrition up, still gels every 30 minutes and eating a banana here and there. I think I was averaging around 6-minute miles. So, I mean, I was doing pretty well.
Right. With this, the hills here, when the downtown area, you kind of have to go up these hills. You practice this in training, but you didn't have the fatigue in the arms that you had on race day. What were these hills like for you?
It did. I mean, whenever I got closer to coming back in town and I knew that the hills were coming, I kind of took a couple seconds just to kind of catch my breath, make sure that I was hitting it and not rushing into it. And yeah, that's kind of what I did. There's a downhill that goes right into the uphill. So I kind of went down, let the momentum carry me. And then whenever I let that carry me as far as it could, and then I took it from there. And, the cool thing was my wife and Eric, my buddy, had both staged at that hill so that they could help push me up the hill, motivate me. They couldn't lay a hand on me, but it really helped just having them cheering for me and everything like that.
Did you at any time think about you were going to have to turn it around and go backwards up the hill?
No, because whenever I had trained and gone uphill in practice, that was the mental help I needed. As soon as I knew I could do it going forward, it never crossed my mind that I need to do it backwards.
Okay. I say that because for some athletes in your situation, it could be easier to go up backwards, right? Yeah.
And I had heard that from another athlete who had attempted it, that he had to go up backwards because it was just too steep, and that's understandable. I just sit. I think I sit a little bit further forward than most wheelchair athletes, and that kept me from flipping or being less tippy.
Gotcha. So, what's some advice that you give somebody that's going to be doing this exact race you're in the hand cycle and push rim bike that hasn't done this before? What's some advice you would give them?
I mean, first things would be just to climb. Make sure, and I had talked about this with my coach as well, as well as in practice, finding elevation to climb, but also getting comfortable with downhills. Because whenever I had first started, I probably was only comfortable going about 40 miles per hour downhill, and I had kind of worked my way up from there. So just make sure you're comfortable doing both.
Okay. So we'll just fast forward to the second loop here. How's your nutrition plan going? Are you having any GI issues? How's your energy levels? What's this like?
No, everything still felt super great. No negative thoughts, and just keeping my eye on the prize, knowing that, again, it has to be handled 1 mile at a time. Nutrition's going well, still doing gels every 30 minutes, still stopping at aid stations for bananas. And then, I just continued going. And like I said, the one way, was basically all downhill. So that was smooth and kind of flew to the one end of the course and then turned around and started heading back. And actually, the rubber that's on my rim, came off. And, so I started actually asking people on bikes and stuff if they had zip ties, but no one did. So I just kind of pushed a little bit harder with my left hand and hoped that it would stay on.
So what do you mean the rubber came off?
It's a metal rim, and then the rubber is glued onto the metal, and that's your pushing surface. And so what had happened was, and I get it a lot on my right side, is that sometimes when I push it removes the rubber from the metal, like comes unglued, and it'll just kind of pop off, and you just glue it back down whenever you need to fix it. But unfortunately in a race, you can't do that. So, sometimes I would go to push and my glove would slip because it wasn't grabbing any rubber. It was grabbing the metal.
Man. So do you think having zip ties on your bike would have helped?
Yeah. I mean, at least having one, I could have done a quick fix of it, but it also wasn't, like I said, I didn't panic with it either. It wasn't the end of the world. It was just more of I had to make more of a thought effort to push up against the rim.
Okay. So if we kind of think about the second loop here, whenever you leave downtown and you go out to the turnaround and come back, this is a windy road where it literally seems like it could go on forever, because you can't see the turnaround, and it keeps winding around. What was your train of thought going through these roads over here? Because this is so mind-numbing, because you can't see the turnaround, and you just take one turn after another, and you can't see the turnaround. What's this like for you?
For me, it really wasn't bad. I was just trying to enjoy the moment. And again, that kind of helps whenever I'm doing 6-minute miles at a point after doing 114 miles. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But yeah, I was just trying to actually enjoy it, because it really wasn't too hateful for me. But yeah, you were right. It's a lot of turns back there. I was just trying to make sure I didn't hit anybody. A lot of screaming that I was coming up on the left side or something like that was happening.
Right. So fast forward to the good part here, miles 23, 24, you're getting back into downtown on your second loop. What's this like seeing the spectators here this time? Because now then, if you see Eric and your wife, they need to be heading over to the finish area versus seeing you on the hill, because you can get there before they can.
Well, actually, that was their thought process too, but they were like, we really want to see him on the hill. So actually, they had come up with a plan that they were going to watch me climb the hill and then immediately shoot over. So that's what they did. Now coming into the hill the second time, definitely was a little bit more fatigued. And I felt it. The climb on the second time was a lot harder, but I still knew I could do it going forward. And I mean, by this point, everybody had started screaming my name, and I really didn't understand it. Why? I'd have people saying Semper Fi, like spectators on the course or something like that. And I'm climbing, and my wife's right beside me, telling me to keep going. And I asked, how does everybody know my name? And she said, apparently they had been tracking me, through the announcer booth and everything for a while. So everybody was rooting for me. So the energy and the amount of support I got was fantastic. And it really helped me get up those hills.
Wow. So, you go by the lake the second time, and then you hit the pivotal point on the course where you can go to your second loop, or you get to go to the finish chute.
Mm-hmm.
What was this like passing this point? Because now then, it's all about enjoying the race.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it was. It was just like, I'm done. Like, this is completed. It kind of just, from there on, I mean, I was really trying to soak it in, but I really wanted to just kind of enjoy it from that point, because, I mean, you're basically gone 140 miles at that point. You only got about a little bit over a half a mile left. So, it was just, let's just enjoy this and live in the moment.
Man. So what did you see? What did you experience? What's this like for you?
Actually, funny thing is I actually got caught up on a lip going into the oval.
Really?
Yeah. My wheelchair got caught there, and then I was like, I'm gonna flip this thing right here and have to freaking crawl for the finish line. It's like a 2x4 that just sticks up. I don't know, probably about 1.5 to 2 inches, and I couldn't. My wheelchair, like, I got the front wheel over it, and then I just couldn't get my rear wheels over it. Probably took me like, I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds. But I was just like, you got to be kidding me. But yeah, once I got through that, it was just looking around and kind of enjoying everything, and just thanking God that I'm still here to be able to do this kind of stuff. And that's all I was thinking whenever I was going on the carpet too. Like, I made it.
Man. So you get to finish the race here at Lake Placid 2019. Mike Riley's here to call you an Ironman. What was this like? I mean, was this emotional for you?
Not really. I don't think it was anyway. It was just, again, just thanking God that I was there. I mean, I still remember just saying, I mean, I was praying the entire course, just, protection and, thank you for, giving me the ability to even do these kind of things. And then at the end of it, it was just thanking God that I'm here and able to do these things, giving me this gift and allowing me to motivate and inspire, which is what I want to do.
Yeah. So you finished the race. Your wife is there. Eric's there. What were they saying and telling you after you finished?
Just congratulations. And the cool thing is since my wife was and Eric were there as my handlers, they were able to be on the inside. So actually, my wife was the one that was able to put the medal around my neck, which was really cool. And then, it was just like, we did it. Like, I can't believe we did it kind of thing.
Man. So now we're about a week and some change after the race. How are you feeling? How was your recovery process? I know you said you've been hungry quite a bit.
Yeah, eating like a horse, and still eating. I'm gnawing at the bit to kind of get back into training, but, my coach wants me to take it easy just for the heart rate. So it's 2 weeks of easy workout. So hopefully, next Tuesday I'll be able to kind of start bumping up my training and getting ready for Chicago. But yeah, it's, again, just taking it easy.
Okay. So, tell me, what's something that you learned from yourself or about yourself from this race experience?
I can do a lot more than what I realized, I guess. Whenever I signed up for this race, I thought this was going to be like the hardest thing I've ever done. And I say that as saying like a physical thing. Obviously my time in the hospital and not dying in Afghanistan, was 10 times harder than anything I'll ever have to do. But just being able to prove to myself that I could do something that I thought was going to be so difficult and feel really good afterwards. Now it's just kind of made me want to do other things and push myself, even further physically, just to see what's out there.
It seems like you like doing very hard things.
I try.
So what other hard things have you thought about doing?
This is, way out, like left field, and just in the very initial kind of stages as Ironman was like 2 years to me. But my coach had mentioned something about trying an Ultraman. So that's kind of piqued my interest a little bit, but that's a ways away. I'm also signed up last week for the Lubbock 70.3, which is a Kona qualifier for hand cycles. So I will have that planned for next year. And then if I do really well there, then I can make Kona.
Man, that's a lot. Ultraman, like Arizona, Florida. Have you picked which one yet?
Nope. I've only just Googled it, just try to figure out the distances.
You know, I've interviewed some athletes about that race, right?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've interviewed, I think, maybe 5 or 6 folks that have done Ultraman. I mean,
what do they say?
They love it. It's more of a family-based feel of a race versus a big event. It's more small feel. You get to know everybody that's there. It's a big family. Ohana is very big for that entire race organization. It's truly amazing.
That's what I've read, and obviously I don't know anybody that's actually done it. I think David Goggins did it. I think he talks about it in his book. I did read his book, and mentioned it slightly, but yeah, that's just something that pops in my head. Again, I don't even know if I would even do it, but it's just something that came up.
I don't see why he couldn't. I mean, you could do it. It's just a matter of one step in front of the other.
And this is true.
So, looking back on it, how well prepared for this race do you feel like you were, man?
I feel like I was everything was really good. I mean, obviously I had the jitters the night before. But I mean, I don't think I could have honestly executed it any better. Felt really good even afterwards. Was sore for 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday was fine. But yeah, I've said the only thing I would have done differently is I would have started eating bananas earlier, but that just was at the time that wasn't even in the plan, because we were going to stay away from solid foods, but I just had to try something.
All right. So, for athletes like yourself that are going to be doing this type of racing, what's some advice that you give them if they're even just thinking of doing Ironman like you were a year ago or 2 years ago, it sounds like?
Oh, I tell everybody to do it. Because of me, I know at least of one other person, not hand cycle athlete, like a full bodied person, but who signed up for an Ironman just because I said it. But it always comes down to, like, if you're thinking about it, you need to do it, because otherwise you'll make the time for training and everything when you have money invested. If you just keep talking about it, you'll never do it. Because that's how I was. I said for probably about a year that I should do it, or I was thinking about it, and one day I just got a wild hair and signed up, and then immediately I was like, well, shoot, I need to start swimming. And that's kind of what led me to this, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So just sign up.
Yep, just sign up, and then you worry about the details later. I mean, there's no specific type of person that does it. You know what I've seen all sorts of body types, male, female, age groups. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's all a mind thing. If it's a mentally tough race, if your mind can handle it, then your body can as well.
Well, I mean, just knowing about your story, your race, I would assume, based off of all the information that you've told me and we've talked about so far, you're really mentally tough. Like, you're not one to just go, yeah, I'm just going to go and cry in the corner and just give up. That's not you.
Mm-mm. No, I definitely agree with that. And I was prepared to fight a lot more demons in my head than I actually had to. But yeah, I just didn't have the voices talking to me in my head and everything. And it just felt really good.
So what do you mean you were prepared to fight a lot more demons than you actually had to? Like, you can't prepare to fight these demons. Like, unless you have been there and fought them before, they're not going to just prepare in training and say, hey, today we're going to fight demons. Like, that's not how this works. Like, how did you prepare to fight these demons that you knew that were there?
Well, I had run into it in training, and I think that was always the nutrition aspect, maybe not having as much nutrition as I should on training rides, but always getting to mile 75 or 80 and just having these voices in my head saying, like, why are you doing this? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, your arms hurt. We should just go back to bed kind of thing. And I didn't have that on the race. It was just like keeping a solid mindset and just focusing on the objective.
Okay. So are you going to do another one?
Well, I signed up for the half, and then if I can do the half in proper time, then I should be able to qualify for Hawaii, hopefully.
Man, so Hawaii 2020.
That's the goal. We'll see how it works, but yeah. In the meantime, I'm already signed up for the Chicago Marathon in a wheelchair, Marine Corps Marathon in a hand cycle, and then looking at doing the Disney races, the 5K, the 10K, the half marathon, and the full marathon, all in a push rim.
Okay, so I'll be at the Marine Corps Marathon. I'll be doing the 50K there this year.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I'll be there with Achilles.
Awesome. Well, I hope I can meet you there in person, man. Like, that'd be pretty cool. I did it last year, just a marathon, and then they opened a 50K, so I'm going to do that this year. Nice.
Yeah, I've done the Marine Corps was actually my first race back in 2012. I think this will be my 5th year. I did it last year as well with Team Semper Fi.
Wow. So looking forward after this, after all these marathons and the Disney race and even Lubbock and even after Kona and Ultraman, say you do Ultraman, like, what's after all this? Like, are you going to stay in the sport forever? Do you want to stay in the sport forever? I mean, you have to be able to go at some point, okay, that was enough. I checked all the boxes. I'm done now. Is that the point, or is there something deeper that wants you to continue doing something like this?
I've just proven that no matter what disabilities or what things are holding you back, anything is possible. Like that's just what I'm saying is, I always say one verse, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that's just what I believe. I mean, with God on my side, I can accomplish anything I set out to do.
Wow. So, man, I only have really 2 more questions left, and that's the first one is: do you have any sponsors that you'd like to thank, and how can people follow you?
I'm only on Instagram, Nubs0311. Not a sponsored athlete. I'm reaching out to a couple more companies because that would definitely help the financial aspect. That was another thing we didn't get into, but how much of a financial commitment Ironman was that I was not prepared for. So I was luckily I had a lot of friends that were willing to help and help fund me. Otherwise, it would have been a much different race.
What do you mean?
Because I didn't think of. I mean, I knew about the signing up for the race. I knew the hotel costs, and that's all I thought. But all the other stuff that I wasn't prepared for. So I didn't have the correct hand cycle. So somebody had to get me that. And then getting supplies to make the gloves for the push rim, getting an extra camelback so that I could use it on the push rim, getting an arrow helmet, just little stuff like that, all adding up. It definitely cost a lot more to do it than I had initially planned.
Wow. So, Zach, I only have one question left for you, and that's, what's your definition of a perfect race?
One where the individual accomplishes what they set out to do. It doesn't if their accomplishment is finishing, then I feel like that they did it. For me, I wanted to finish Placid with a finishing time, which I did, and so it was a perfect race for me, and I learned a lot as well.
Wow. Well, Zach, I just want to thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I've really enjoyed sharing your story and sharing about your race in detail. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for spending some time with me this morning.
Thank you, Terry. I really had a great time.
Yeah. Well, you have a good day, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Sounds good.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.